Pam Lippett from the Hill Street Group. I think a number of you I know, and a number of you who signed up to watch on Facebook and LinkedIn I don't know. So welcome to my world. I'm Pam Lippett from the Hill Street Group. I have a background in communication strategies, and I am here to talk to you about a unique opportunity and a unique population that is sitting in the midst of this, dare I say, mess of a economy, looking for jobs as they graduate college. So I am here today to talk to you about what's next, right? What's next is now the real, I'm moving to where I want to be. You can tell I'm doing this myself. What's next? Well, the real work begins. This is a webinar about how recent college graduates need to stand out to either get their first job in the workforce, or if they're still in the hunt, stand out from all those other people also applying. The trick is to go well beyond just turning in something in Indeed. And we're going to talk about a little bit of those pieces, but mostly about when you're in front of someone, when you're talking to someone, when you're writing to someone, how you can behave and act and really put yourself forth so that you have a uniqueness and an opportunity to be remembered because you are communicating with confidence. So let's just dive in, because that's the best thing to do at this point. And we are going to, that's interesting because this didn't shift. It should have, but it didn't. So let's go over here. We're going to talk about communicating with confidence. Part of my communicating with confidence is, and I'll talk about this again later, is knowing when things glitch up a little bit, especially in technology, and just how to kind of brush it off and move forward. Don't get lost in it, but just say, oops, let's get this working and go. That's, in this world, really what has to happen, and what makes you sit differently than people who panic when things go wrong. I don't panic. I have always felt, I've been on a computer since the 1980s, when also it was really hard to get a job. And I have always felt that I'm bigger than the computer, and I can throw the computer out the window and it can't throw me out the window. So the rest will just take place. So we're going to talk about, during this time, about how to project your image during the job search and then the first few months on the job. So the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about me. I'm Pam Lippett. I'm owner and chief communicator of the Hill Street Group. I own that title because I own the business, so I can title myself anything I want. I always like to share 3 things about me in terms of business and 3 things personally. I really recommend that if you're in the job hunt or you're starting out, that you figure out what those 3 things are. You have those in your back pocket. I call it, the arrows in the quiver, things you can pull out and talk about, that you don't have to think, oh, what am I going to tell them about myself? I already know I'm going to tell you about me. And I'm going to tell you this because I want you to see that I'm an individual, I'm unique, and I have certain things that let me be conversational and let me speak directly to you. The first 3 things, the business things, is I work with small businesses, nonprofits, and individuals to help them clarify their voice and become succinct and successful in owning their own voice. I lead workshops and present at conferences on all types of communication skills, and I'm so excited. I have a new podcast called Communication is an Art, where you either hear from me or you hear from my guests about different ways we communicate in the workplace and in life, as it were. And then there's always 3 personal things about me that I like to share. I love to garden. It's spring when I'm doing this, and spring is my favorite time because every day there's something else blossoming in my garden. I'm an artist at heart. I guess that's why I like the different flowers and the look and the textures. Right now, I'm doing a lot of beading and knitting if I ever get the time. I love being near water. It's my favorite thing. Here's one for you. My favorite sound in the world is the water lapping against the shore. That is a question you can ask other people. What's your favorite sound? It opens up a dialogue and a conversation that goes places you never even imagined. And of course, I have a fourth thing on my personal list, which is really the first thing. It's that I bleed maize and blue. I am a proud U of M graduate. As we move forward, during the next 20 minutes, I'm going to ask you to put down your phone, get ready to take some notes or some screen grabs, and post on social media that you attended this and that tag me. I'd love to be tagged either at Pamela Lippett or at Hill Street Group. Either one works for me. And I will make sure that I respond to you. So let's dive into the move from being a student to into the workforce full time and the expectations that change with those things. We're going to learn about a little bit about tips to communicate clearly and confidently in those first moments, how to ask and answer questions, how to advocate for yourself, and really why it matters. So let's go. Ready, set, go. So we talk about a student versus an employee, right? So a student, and my student days are, to be honest, quite a while behind me, but I still have that memory of going to the professor's office and asking for a little more time on a project, or especially a group project when everybody wasn't kind of living up to their expectations or your expectations. I have to say, it's one of my faults is that the expectations I put on myself, I tend to put on other people. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but it is what it is. So that's what happens. In college, you can get by on no sleep and show up in sweats. And while you can show up in a lot of variety of clothes these days, there's something about being wrinkled and rolling out of bed that everybody can see. You can't do that on the job. You certainly can't do it 2 or 3 times. You also have to figure out your own timing. You can't just put things off a bit. Unless you're like me and you were sick as a dog last week and you were supposed to do this webinar and you just couldn't move. But that's because I'm the boss. That's because I have the experience and I have the years in that allow me to do that. But boy, as a first-time employee, I certainly showed up sick to a number of things, including speaking in front of hundreds of people with food poisoning. Story for another day. The other thing you can't do is stare at your phone. We've come to a place where that's our default. You're nervous, you look at your phone. You're bored, you look at your phone. You think something more is happening somewhere else, you look at your phone. Now's the time that changes. An employer doesn't put up with those kind of things. They certainly don't put up with it for long. And I know this is a employee-driven economy where really employees can speak for themselves a lot, but things are changing quickly and it's not going to last. And you want to be seen as the team player, as the team person in an interview that really is ready to be wherever that business is sitting at that point. So now we're going to move into substance. So we're going to take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath, because here we're coming to the real gist of the information. We all know there are different types of communication, but all those types have to seamlessly work together to present the whole you. And so that's what's important as we move through how we project ourselves, how we're seen, how we're perceived in this new world we're entering. or our graduate is entering. I know that some of you may be parents and listening for your kids, and that's okay, but your kids it's ready. Show this to them again and let them take away their points from it. So there are different ways to communicate that we're going to go over today. There are many others, but these are the big three, as they say. In Detroit, I'm from Detroit, we say the big three always refers to the auto world, but the big three refers to many things. So today we're going to talk quickly about written communication, verbal communication, and nonverbal communication. And they all really wrap together in my mind. So I'm old school. I still like quotes. And my favorite quote still is from Marshall McLuhan. He was kind of the grandfather of all messaging and communication. And he says, the medium is the message. Well, that in the olden days had a very different, a different spin than it does today, because the medium is no longer necessarily showing up in person. The pandemic taught us that Zoom can be the medium, that hybrid meetings can be the medium, and that all those different pieces make it so much more challenging. You know, there was I'm just showing you this UCLA study that showed that your gestures, so it's harder to gesture, right? I got to pay attention to where I'm gesturing in this webinar. That makes up 55% of the impact you have on an audience. Whether the audience is the people you're interviewing in front of, or the first meeting you're sitting in, or the first cube or the first square in a Zoom meeting, those gestures count. And so it's really important to figure those, how your perception is there. The tone of your voice. Are you going up at the end of a sentence or up at the end of a question? Those are important things, especially when you turn your camera off, which I hope you never do, or the other person is only listening and they don't even see the gestures you're making. So we follow this formula. Your words only make up 7% of what you're saying. Now, that to me is still a bit crazy, that your presentation, your physical presentation, is 93% of the impact. But I want to pull that back a little bit and pull the curtains off. I think this only applies when your words are right and you've got your facts and you know what you're talking about. That's still the essence of what's being said. And then those other pieces wrap around. And it really shows why all three of these pieces really wrap together when you're talking with people. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts. I have my own things that make me crazy. I'm sure you have things that make you crazy. One of the things that make me crazy, whether in writing or speaking to someone, is using negative talk. Let's not do that. Or how about, it's better to say, what if we consider doing something this way and then compare how how it works out? Or using too many words. I'm not a big fan of word vomit. I don't even like the phrase, but I really don't like just words and words and words. I like coming to things concisely and quickly and shortly, not as soon as I can. So when I'm writing something, I always go back and I see where I can take extra words out to make it clearer and really have the idea that each word you're writing or you're saying should hold an impact. It shouldn't be fluffed up with everything around it. That reminds me of in college, the essay answers we had to give to in tests, and the theory that if you just spin words out, somewhere in those words you're actually going to hit the answer, and maybe in all those words the professor will see it. Well, I don't really believe in that. I believe in getting to the point and making sure everyone understands what you're saying. Another thing is ending sentences with a preposition. I know we're more relaxed, and when we're speaking, we can be a little more relaxed, but if we're writing something formal, a proposal, a new idea, we really need to keep track of the grammar. Yes, you can rely on Grammarly or all those different things. I suggest we learn it, and then we don't have to rely on anyone but knowing proper English. So instead of saying, where should we hold the meeting at? And it goes back to making it less words. Where should we hold the meeting? It's a complete sentence. It doesn't need the extra preposition at the end. And then, proofreading is the thing that really, really makes me crazy. So just don't even get me started on that. If you pay attention, you'll see there's a proofreading mistake in that last sentence. So if you get it, you get extra bonus points. Let's talk a little bit about written communication. And I see that my little logo is sitting on top, and I'm going to just kind of move that out right now so that we don't see it and it is not bothering us. Okay. Written communication. This sets the tone for everything we do, everything that follows. You're sending a letter of introduction. You're connecting with someone. You're doing an Indeed or another kind of application. This written communication, because that's what it is, sets the tone for everything that follows. If that's sloppy, everything, you're going to be perceived as someone who gets away with things being a little bit sloppy. And that's not my general suggestion. I really suggest you be professional from the get-go. It's like I've been a teacher in the past, and I always say you can start a teacher with a lot of rules and regulations and expectations, and then lessen them as you go along and the class coalesces and you're put together. You can never start sloppy with no rules and then put them on later. Trust me, you cannot do that. So I recommend you always proof what you write. Read your messages, your posts, your emails backwards. I know that sounds backwards, sounds like a little weird, but if you do that, your brain looks at each word individually. And while proofing on your computer can pick up mistakes, it can't pick up the wrong word if it's spelled right. It only can pick up misspellings. So really pay attention to that. I always recommend waiting before you hit that send button, especially if it's something important. If it's the morning, put it into draft without the person's email address on it. Let it sit till after lunch if you can. If it's the end of the day, you don't want to throw something on someone else at the end of the day. Wait till the morning and reread it. Also, coming out of college, I think it's important to say we need to write in the real world to be understood, not to like flaunt our smarts. The goal is not to say you have a fancy schmancy vocabulary, though I do, and I do like to use words. I really like when I don't know a word and I have to look it up. But your goal here in the workplace is to be understood by everyone. And there are times when things are complicated that I actually send something to my best friend and say, can you read this? You know what I'm trying to say? Am I getting it across? Am I doing this the right way, or am I getting lost somewhere? And I really feel that I believe in her support of me and that she will always tell me the truth. And that's what we're looking for, is the truth. And then one more word about AI. AI is what you see is what you get. What you put in is what you get out. And so while AI is going to change our lives, it's already changing our lives. I call ChatGPT Chatty. I'm on a first name basis with her. I usually use her every day, but I don't copy and paste her answers. I use those as tools to get me to the next step if I'm caught somewhere or to polish something. But I still need to make sure that what I'm writing is authentic to me and authentic to what I would say in person. Because in person, you can't say, hold on a minute, let me ask ChatGPT or another AI what I want to tell you. It doesn't work that way. So if your writing doesn't match your speaking, then there's a problem. So that's the piece about written communication. As we move on, we talk about verbal communication. This could be, any of these could be a whole webinar on their own, right? Each of these things. So I'm really condensing it down to give you a little taste of things that I think are important. For verbal communication, I think looking people in the eye may be the most important thing that I see in this world. Not looking if there's someone more important over their shoulder, not looking at the floor, not looking at the phone, but looking at people in the eye. For some people, that's a really big challenge. And it's hard to think about if that comes naturally to you, it's hard to understand how difficult that is for some people. But give them grace, give yourself grace, practice, 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 so that you can look people in the eye and really talk right to them. Or I like to say, with them. 2 means there's a kind of a hierarchy. When you say, I'd like to talk with you, I'd like to chat with you, can we talk together? You are saying you're both on the even playing field, and let's both talk and communicate together. The other thing is, if you make a mistake, just own it. I made a mistake putting up my logo at the top of this, and I should have realized it earlier and taken it off. I told you, I don't think anyone's going to hold it against me. I owned it. I corrected it, and we're moving on. The next thing I talk about a lot is leaving room for silence in a conversation. Some people get really nervous about silence. But what silence does is allows the other person a chance to think and respond. And if you're not leaving that pause, I just did a whole podcast about the power of the pause. You can look it up. Communication is an art. Leaving that room to allow the other person into the conversation is so important. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. Surprisingly, very surprisingly, what does not make me crazy are filler words like and like and okay and so. I use so too much. I know I do. When I play things back, it makes me crazy as well. But if you're thinking about an answer, those words are there to kind of to tell people you're thinking, but let your mind go at the same time. I do not think that's appropriate when you're talking about yourself, when you're telling your 3 things, when you're sharing something that you should know, like I work with small teams, nonprofits, and individuals to help people create clear, concise voices. That's a sentence. That's something I know about myself, and I should be able to say that without the pause and without losing track. Now, this is an interesting bit, and I know I'm jumping a little bit here, but I want to talk about getting out of conversations. The National Academy of Science tells us that only 2% of conversations end when both people want them to. That means 98% of the time, someone is dissatisfied at the end of a conversation. To me, that's crazy talk, right? How is that even possible? And what can we do to make sure that that doesn't happen? There are ways. There are ways, and we're going to get to them as we move forward. The last part of my trio is nonverbal communication. And I'm going to also go quickly through this because each of these could be its own webinar. Movement, time, distance. You always know those close talkers who you just want to back away from. You know the people who are too touchy that you haven't met before. They used to be annoying. Now it's a huge no-no. How you look visually. I'm not saying, everybody's a size 2 wonder, whatever, but everybody can be clean and appropriate to the situation. And then the tone of your voice. It's a little crazy because we all hate how we sound, but we need to make sure that even with that, we listen to ourselves, we practice, we get comfortable in our own self and our own body so that we can talk to people. It's just all those pieces then come together and present who you are and who you want to be going forward. The other thing that I'm adding into this section is about asking questions, especially if you're a new hire, especially if you're new on the job. You need to take notes. I have had assistants and secretaries over the years, executive secretaries, other, staff members. And I had one rule, especially the first 6 months someone worked for me. Never show up in my office to have a conversation without a pen and paper. It could be your laptop at this point. It could be whatever, your note app. But have something to take notes on, because otherwise you're going to walk out of the room and go, oops, what was I supposed to do first? Let me figure that out. And you're going to come back in. And to be honest, you're going to waste my time and their time. So be prepared. Know what you want to ask. Find the right time to ask. I didn't like this first image I'm showing you with the question mark, because you can see that both people are kind of hunched over. And I think that when you're hunched over and to relax, that you're not finding the right question and getting the right response. You need to find your voice and sound strong when you're asking a question, much more like the second picture where everyone is sitting up and paying attention at a meeting. I know these are little things and they're nonverbal things, but there are those who really look at those things more than you would ever imagine. And then you also can model your behavior. I talked about this a little bit before when you're ending a conversation and when you're speaking. So one thing is when you're leaving space for other people, I always suggest to my clients that they think of their thoughts as paragraphs. When you're reading a book and you come to the end of a paragraph, you pause. Your brain knows that it's time to stop and kind of absorb that paragraph and then move on to the next thought. When you come to the end of a chapter, you know it's the time to take a big pause, reflect on what was said, and then move on. It's also very appropriate to ask if at the end of a conversation, just say, I want to make sure I understand. I want to make sure we're on the same page as we walk out of this room so that or walk off this, finish the Zoom or finish our email chain. I want to make sure I understand. I want to move forward so we're both on the same page. Sometimes you don't understand, or sometimes the other person hasn't necessarily been clear enough of what they're asking of you, and so you misunderstand. But if you give the other person the space and the grace to repeat or reassess what they're asking of you or what their thoughts were, then that 2% starts to grow. You both leave the conversation happy and satisfied that it's ending on the right footnote. Oh, these are my flowers in my garden last summer. I always find that it's important to show some of my flowers because I love to garden. Finding a connection. So I always use this quote from Jerry Jones had sent me a message. I don't know him in person, so he's not someone I don't know that he knows that I'm always using this as my quote, but he wanted to thank me for in advance for sharing insights on a LinkedIn Live program I did a while ago. And he wrote, he knows it's taking me away from gardening and knitting. Again, that's my knitting and my garden. The reason I thought it was so important is that not only before our conversation had he looked me up on LinkedIn, had he done a deep dive, the bottom line of my about section is about gardening and knitting. So he really looked up what could make a common connection and what would make me remember him. Guess what, Jerry Jones? It worked. I still remember that that's what you wrote to me. So figure out what can be a common connection. This is especially true if you're still in the interviewing stage. So it could be that you use the same kind of notebook. I love the disc system. And so if somebody else has a disc system notebook, I always kind of comment on it. I once was in an interview for a job that I didn't get. And to be honest, 5 minutes in, I didn't want the job. But someone had a Team Alex water bottle. And, I know Alex's parents, and this is a group that rides for Make-A-Wish. It gave me a connection. I was able to say, do you ride for Team Alex? Do you know people on Team Alex? I know, Alex's parents. Alex was a young girl who passed away way too young. But it created a common thread for us to talk about. And when he had a pile of interviews at the end, even though I didn't want the job and I never would have accepted the job, he remembered, I am sure, that my connection was Team Alex. And then I always look if people have, creative links and ways to connect. And that tells them I'm up on technology. It tells me they understand technology and are up on it as well. And it gives us something to talk about in common. So now let's say you got the job. You've got the job. Again, pictures from my yard. I do like to garden. The first month in, what do I think? And again, this is a whole webinar that could be an hour. When you're new in the job, to me, there's some critical things. The first one is be organized. Second, be prepared. Third, practice who you are and how you're going to talk about yourself. And then speaking of talking about yourself, don't talk about yourself too much. Listen more than you talk. Absorb. Spend those first months understanding the culture you've landed in, making sure it's the culture you really plan to be in, and how you can suggest subtle changes if it's not, and have some thoughts and phrases prepared in your head. I always go back to preparation. It's my underlying thing. I am always over-prepared. Over-prepared is better than any day of the week than being underprepared as far as I'm concerned. So in summary, these are the things that are the most important to me. Using concise language, using the same language, playing to your strengths and being yourself, showing you're unique. And I'm unique, and I love connecting with other people, and I love flowers. So I'm hoping that this is something that really resonated with you out there, either just graduated or Noah graduate. But I want to tell you something. If you like this, but you think that your person or you need a little more support to get all those pieces in place, I'm here for you. More support is available. Look at that. I just want to tell you that this gift, this graduation season, I really recommend giving the gift of success. Give people the way to move forward in the job search, in those first months in a job. Help them to be the best they can be, and help them through this new recent college grad cohort that is now open. So who's it for? It's for recent grads actively job hunting, for grads preparing to start their first full-time job, and for parents, mentors, and friends looking to give a meaningful gift that goes beyond cash or gift cards or something they'll never remember. Setting someone up for success is something that you will always remember. What cohort members will learn, and they'll probably be, we're looking at small cohorts, no more than 6 people per cohort, and hopefully divided by those still searching and those entering their first jobs. People will learn how to speak clearly and confidently in their interviews. I need some water. Excuse me, please. They'll learn what professional communication looks like. That's everything from what email you're using to what signature you've added to all your information, all those different pieces, and how to ask questions, how to offer ideas and advocate for yourself without sounding inexperienced or like a newbie, sounding like you kind of have been around the block and you know what you're doing, and now it's time to move forward with the rest of the world. Why it matters. Because college teaches content. An engineer knows how to extrude something on a platform to make a 3D piece. But they probably haven't learned how to communicate that as well as they should. I'm impressed that I know how to do it because I sold software for that at one point. Employers hire and promote how you show up, how you listen, how you effectively communicate with others. Now is the time at the beginning to learn how to do that the right way. It's where the cohort members will work together to learn what those unspoken rules are in the workplace, develop those real world skills, and get feedback in a positive manner and set them up. One of the things that's so important is that first job, the salary in the first job, how you negotiate it. That then sets you up for the rest of your life. Like I said, when I got out of college, there were no jobs, but I got offered a job. Everyone I know who got offered a job, there really wasn't anything like negotiating your salary. You were lucky to have a job and you took it. We're sort of entering that phase right now, but I think with a lot more smarts behind us, we still can advocate for ourselves, and we can learn how to do that well through our communication. So what's included, you ask? Did you ask? Because I'm telling you. 4 sessions of the cohort or 1-hour sessions of the small group coaching, an online workbook or lessons that include 4 modules, 30-minute personal coaching for each member individually, and we'll set that up based on the person's schedule, and then bonus content. I always like to throw in a few things. How much does it cost, you ask? Well, considering how much you paid for college, this is a nice little bonus to add in to really get you into the real world. The cohorts start in mid to late June. The fee for everything I talked about is a $197 a person. It will never be that price again, ever. And if I reach 4 cohorts, it won't be the same for the 5th cohort. And then you can add in a bonus of a half-hour LinkedIn review, a LinkedIn profile review and suggestions for an up of $50. So all in for $247, you would have everything, including my experience for 50 years of experience in the workplace to help you succeed. And that really is, at this point, my goal in life is to help others succeed, because I know others helped me succeed as well. Maybe not in this formula situation. Maybe I would have gotten further ahead than I have. I don't know, but I want to be here to help you. So here's the registration link. It's a bit.ly link, HSG, Hill Street Group, --cohort 2525, or you can scan the QR code here And if you're watching this on playback, just hit pause so you can scan the QR code and jump in. If you're not quite sure yet and you have more questions, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Facebook or email, or I've learned to read smoke signals at this point. I think if people want to talk to me, let's schedule a 20 minutes. Call. Or a Zoom. I'm happy to talk with you and answer whatever questions you may have. Did that convince you? Just make sure we count you in and you get all these little juicy details and all the opportunities to move ahead in your career. Get started on the right foot. And if you still want more information, there's more coming your way. You can sign up at the Hill Street Group Cohort 2025 and get more information going forward. So I said this would be about 45 minutes. We're at 41 minutes. It's one of my superpowers, is doing things on time without scripts. By the way, I've had no script. You can always feel free to contact me. Oh, the second LinkedIn is spelled wrong. So oh, look, I made a mistake. I'm owning it. And I will fix it when we get off this call. But the best way is to send me a message through LinkedIn. It's always the easiest and fastest way I respond. You can also find me and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, listen to Communication is an Art, the podcast found on all your streaming services. So that's me for today. I hope this was worthwhile. You learned some things and you're really ready for more. I am happy to answer any questions you may have, and I am so pleased that you joined us today. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all.